this is about as amazing a time if you're a comic book movie fan. Um, you know, with everything that Marvel does and putting out good quality stuff, we've been dying to see DC do the same similar um, set of movies, and maybe this is the jumping point.
Yeah, I agree. And, I don't even think it's going to be pinned down to just movies. Now that HBO Max is, I mean, this is where it all kind of became a reality, was with this option. Um, and I'd love to bring up the point that, like, this overall kind of shows fans' actions can get them to what fans want. Um, this is the biggest example of that. But if you go back, just I guess beginning to middle of last year, there was the whole Sonic the Hedgehog thing. People,
Yep,
people, me included, and I believe Chris included, thought that the design was hideous,
the
uh,
worst.
the absolute worst. It did not represent Sonic the Hedgehog or any sort of like nostalgia-like qualities about it that I could think of to even get me interested. And the trailer they released along with that was awful. And I don't know if it's just the way they timed it, or I know there's a pretty bad song. I don't even remember which song it was. It was a bad song. It was a bad edit, uh, and it had bad design, and it was awful. And there was outrage immediately. And I watched Sonic 2 nights ago, and it is incredible. Uh, it's hilarious. Jim Carrey is a god. Uh,
Does Jim Carrey go full Ace Ventura, Jim
No,
Carrey?
no, no. And that's what's so uh, fucking cool is that you know he. Uh oh, sorry. I don't think it went live yet on Facebook. I think we've just been talking.
Oh, wow.
It's been recording on the OBS thing, but I don't think it went live on Facebook. So hang on just a second. That's so funny. Okay, it's up now. We're live.
Nice.
Hey everybody. Good afternoon. This is the Super Theory Podcast. My name is Brandon Martin. With me is my co host, Chris Green. And we're super excited to be doing this. We're super excited to get into this. We're huge comic book fans and comic book movie fans. And this kind of developed over our discussions we would have through Messenger about just all the things that have been developing over like the past. I don't know, how long have we been talking about this in secret? Like,
Oh gosh, it's been five
I was gonna say
5 years probably.
5 or 6 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
We found out we were both big Batman fans. We've known each other for actually a very long time. We went to elementary school together. Uh,
Yep.
I think maybe like third or fourth grade, probably. Uh, Great House, maybe, or Sam Houston.
So I was in Bush in third grade, and then Lamar in fourth,
Okay.
Bush again in fifth, and then Washington sixth with that big L.
So where were you in second grade?
Second was Bush also.
Okay, so it must have been in second grade because I went to Bush too, and that's got to be where it started. And then maybe we saw each other again back at Abel later
Yeah, okay.
on. Yeah. So I'm getting some live notes. So sorry for about that, guys. We're turning down the mics a little bit. We hear it's a little bit loud. We are lagging. Um, I don't know if this helps. All right. Sorry if it's a little loud. My computer is working a little pretty hard, and I'm just seeing how well it's going to go this first time around. So apologize for any excess noise. Anyways, cool. We're back now. Sounds great. Thank you, Reed. That's one of our listeners. He's also pretty much been our producer for this whole thing. So apologize for the lag in conversation, but we're back at it. Chris and I became closer over the years. We became Facebook friends. We went to school together. We found out we were both super into comic book movies as well. Uh, we found out how deep each other were in this. I think I found out first who was in more deep than I was, or he was in more deep than I was. He sent me a photo of his back, and across his shoulders, he just has straight up Gotham. Uh, and I was like, all right, you know,
Listen, I
res-
rep my city,
respect.
basically.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. But yeah, so we're super excited to get this to do this for you guys. We hope everything sounds good. Again, this is our first try. We're going at it, but we got a lot we want to talk about. Um, and I think the first thing we'd like to bring up is, you know, uh, Zack Snyder's back in the saddle again.
And we're
Um,
back in the
Snyder
Snyder again.
again. Totally. Yeah, man, it's so exciting. I am very, God, I was overjoyed, honestly. I think it's something that a lot of people needed as far as like, I wouldn't say closure, but just like, what the hell,
Well, I just know that for the last probably 3 years there would be those random, whether it be Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con, where people would put together. They'll even fly over banners from planes where it would be a release of Snyder Cut, and there would be like a constant pressure. And then you would send me a message showing it, and we would have different levels of excitement, thinking that, okay, well, surely we're going to get an announcement soon. And
Yeah,
so I was almost in disbelief when it actually happened and picked up steam, I guess maybe 2 weeks ago, a week
yeah.
ago or so.
Here's what's so messed up to me. I can't believe that we got the announcement of the fucking Snyder Cut before we got an intro or a trailer for a new Batman video game.
I
Uh,
know.
I feel like the video game was a much more hardcore lock than the Snyder Cut ever was, and the fact that we have confirmation on this before that kind of blows my mind, to be
Oh, it's
honest.
crazy.
Um, but again, we're super excited about this, and what I think is so crazy is how this kind of is the ultimate culmination of showing like how much action the fans can get happening when you know they really want it. Uh, and again, this is like the biggest example, but I think it all started with Sonic the Hedgehog. When that first trailer came out and the first photo of his design came out,
Oh, yeah, it was awful.
it was god awful.
Yeah.
Nobody, the general consensus of everyone except the people that worked on the design itself, uh, thought was terrible.
Yeah.
Uh, which means you're definitely not listening to the right crowd. Um, but it was there was an uproar, and rightly so, in a lot of people, in a majority of people's minds. And then I think they dropped the design first, then they dropped the trailer, which was kind of garbage, and I think it was only garbage because of the edit. Uh,
Yeah.
the music was bad. It just didn't. It wasn't timed out very well, comedically. And I say all that because I watched Sonic 2 nights ago, and it was badass. Like it is one of the best video games, if not the best video game movies I've ever seen. Jim Carrey is magnificent.
So he didn't go full Ace Ventura, Jim Carrey.
He did not. It was kind of amazing to see because you could see that energy was in there, but he treated Robotnik as a super genius, which I guess he's supposed to be because he's like a creator of stuff, and he's in
Right.
this modernized version of it. He like makes security weapons. He makes like drones and stuff like that. Which the drones are like the more typical things you would have seen in the actual game that Sonic would jump on and destroy.
Right.
Um, but he plays the smartest man in the world, and so he plays the ego part of it very well. But he also subdues himself because he's like focusing on what he's got to do. Like it was amazing, and I mean I'd watch it again in a heartbeat. And again,
Really.
I'm a huge Jim Carrey fan, but I was very pleased to see what he did with it. It blew me away. And
Nice.
Ben Schwartz's Sonic was great, and James Marsden was great, but Jim Carrey as a villain is the life of that movie, and the end credit scenes are just as good. So if you watch it, please stay tuned for all that.
But it does show you how important fans' voices, and let's just say they made no changes to the design of Sonic. Maybe you would have gotten half the eyeballs on a good performance by Jim Carrey.
Yeah, I mean,
And so it matters when fans speak up. And there's been a lot of talk about the toxicity behind some of the fan movement of the Snyder Cut, and I just think there were a lot of circumstances. The internet's a trash heap usually anyway, but the circumstances behind why Zack Snyder had to leave the project were unique. and therefore we really didn't just see a bad Zack Snyder movie. With Justice League, we saw a completely different director's movie, in
Yeah,
my
and I
opinion.
think one of the things I heard about it that I think best describes it is it was like a Frankenstein movie. It was like
Right,
someone put all these pieces together and tried to do something about it, and it was just not happening whatsoever.
right.
Um, but before we get in that, as far as fans' actions, we can also go back to Spider-Man, when Tom Holland was about to get the boot from the
Oh yeah,
Marvel Universe and be kind of just hanging out with Sony. Uh, Not only did the fans cry out, he cried out to Bob Iger on the phone, and
yep,
that was fixed within a week. Okay,
yep.
and to me that was kind of crazy that again that can get fixed in a week. We can get Sonic redesigned, but you have to give a man who had to leave the project due to his daughter's death. Um, you had to take it took fans 3 years to convince execs of that versus a week for Spider-Man or like what 4 or 5 months for Sony or not Sony. I'm
Well,
sorry,
how
Sega.
how much percentage credit would you give? Like, let's say, so you obviously had the Tom Holland to back into the Marvel universe cry out from the fans, but it really moved when Tom Holland, contacted Bob Iger directly. How much percentage do you give, like, Ben Affleck and Gal Gadot and Jason Momoa actually retweeting release a Snyder Cut on Twitter for everything to get the ball moving?
Well,
Because it really does seem like to have the actors behind it
I
in
think
each scenario
I
moved it.
I believe you're right. I believe some more than others. I think probably the loudest people were Jason Momoa and Ray Fisher,
Yeah,
and Gal Gadot and Ben Affleck and even Ezra Miller were probably a little bit more subdued because they were already working on. Well, Gal was already working on other things with Wonder
right.
Woman. She was going forward. Ezra was working with trying to get the Flash right, but also going with Fantastic Beasts. And Ben Affleck had some all his personal issues he's dealt with, which he's been vocal
Did
about.
you did you see Ray Fisher's video when when it was all announced and
Yeah,
he was very emotional? Man, that was awesome.
yeah. I mean, but like, I mean, again, you could compare him to Tom Holland. I mean, these
Right.
people are portraying characters that they absolutely care about.
Yeah, it
Uh,
means a lot.
it means it probably means everything. I mean, Ben
Right.
Affleck writing Batman and being Batman. I mean, he can go on TV shows and say, "Oh, it means the world to me to play this character," but like, everyone kind of knows that he is for real about it. You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
100%.
like that dude for sure wanted to be Batman. He wasn't someone who's like, "Oh yeah, I'd like to do some other indie projects," or blah blah blah. I'm a filmmaker.
Right.
He, for sure, he did, Good Will Hunting and all that. But if Batman pops up, yeah, I'm in. Tell me when and when.
Yeah.
Like him
And
having to,
imagine signing on to a movie or even a trilogy of movies you sign a contract to, and you end up the director leaves that was supposed to be there from the start. New director comes in. You have to do all these reshoots that take up more of your time, and you're dealing just with normal life. It probably is extremely disheartening, and no
oh,
wonder he doesn't want to play the role
I mean,
currently.
the morale is out the window. I mean,
Yeah, how many sad Affleck YouTube videos do people put up
yeah, and
of
you
him
know what? There's
reacting
a
to the critical acclaim? It sucks.
and he has great reason to be sad. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, look what, and again, the sadness kind of started with BVS, and I think that was really due to the theatrical version. I don't think it gave as much weight as the Ultimate Edition. I've watched the Ultimate Edition so many times now, and it's so much better. There's a
and
huge.
what did they add? 30 minutes to the Ultimate Edition, and it
They added
completely
30
made
minutes.
the difference.
They added 30 minutes, but in that 30 minutes was one of the biggest plot points of the whole movie,
Oh,
which is
100%.
that lady from the African tribe that says her people were killed. She saw Superman do it, and then goes to the senator and admits she was lying. I mean, it changes the
Yeah,
entire dynamic of that whole courtroom scene of what Superman knows, of what the senator knows. It changes everything, and it makes that even a more gut wrenching story because I mean he was about to have the whole world was about to hear Superman be cleared, and then the bomb goes off. And
Well, and then just the follow up of Lois Lane realizing that the wheelchair had been lined with lead,
right,
which is the one object that Superman can't see through in the comics, and that makes a huge difference to tell just audience fans in general. Well, why couldn't he see it?
right.
It changes everything.
Yeah, and I think that's I think a lot of people also had problems with Batman being a killer or whatever, and Superman not being Christopher Reeve. Sorry,
Yeah,
it's a new day and age. This is a
grow
real
up, everybody.
world.
Yeah, grow up.
If you're hanging on to the underwear outside of the costume, there's bigger problems going on than Henry Cavill being Superman.
Right. Yeah.
These are superheroes in a real world that's more real than I would say probably the Marvel world that those heroes exist in. Like Zach wanted to give real weight to the consequences of having two high-powered aliens fighting each other in a world that's never seen anything like this ever at all, and these people don't know how powerful they are. They have one mission. Zod was made to be there for the good of his people and try to that was what he was born for in the population control. What's it called, the chrysalis or whatever, where all the babies are made or whatever. I mean, everything was down to a T. They had perfected, and so and then Superman, his dad tells him he wanted him to have a choice. Kal or Jor-El says he'll have the ability to choose what kind of man he wants to be, and it took a consequence of killing Zod and taking a life, but at the same time he saved his world, or at least what he could have. But it was a learning experience. Anyways, I rant over Zach's trying to bring this real world thing to these people. So of course Batman is giving up on the idea of not using guns.
Yeah, and you may want to, for all the flaws that people may have against Zack Snyder as a movie maker, there's a tonal kind of aspect that he has to most of his movies.
Yes.
But if you're going to give a director a quote-unquote trilogy, or even if they ended up doing a second Justice League movie, so he gets a fourth movie after the Man of Steel, BVS, and the two Justice Leagues, you got to let him see that all the way through, because the arc that Superman takes in Man of Steel as a naive superhero, learning his way, all the way to then what we see in the finished product is supposed to be a different superhero because he has a character arc.
Right.
And we didn't get to see Zack Snyder's vision is for that. So, yeah, if all the fans want to get on the internet and push the executives to say, hey, take our money, then yeah, the executives ought to listen to that.
No, you said it best. I mean, literally, we're the fans
all
over the world are trying to hand their money to you.
Please, take it.
We just want these stipulations.
Yes. We just want you to put the director in if he wants to do it. And that's the big caveat, is we then started about maybe a year ago, Snyder started putting a lot of things out on Vero, showing, clips, or not even necessarily clips, just screen grabs of what his version was, and all of us were like, what the hell?
Yeah.
This looks much better. It was sort of the same feeling I got seeing the Ultimate Edition BVS versus a theatrical. It just was, way better.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're going to be, I don't see there being a scenario where many of us who want the Snyder Cut are going to watch it and then say, oh, this is worse.
Right.
Because maybe many of us will double down.
That's exactly right.
I feel like tonally we'll just say, hey, it makes more sense as a movie, regardless of how good it is.
It falls so much in line with what it should be.
Right.
And, to kind of put a button on this idea, it's the fans made this happen. The fans spent 3 years looking and literally hoping, and the whole idea of Superman is that he is hope for our world. And
right.
I feel like it's just, gone full 360, and now we have the hope, and it's because Zack Snyder gets to show his version of Superman, which he presented as hope. Well, it falls on each other. It's like falling in on itself.
And one last thing, as far as everyone worried about, well, does this set a dangerous precedent, for people to have to go back and redo a bunch of their movies if you get irate fans on Twitter? First of all, the unique scenarios we've already discussed involving Zack Snyder. So it's not like he put out his own movie and then it flopped critically. Uh, I just think that you get all these actors whose schedules kind of work together. It's such a unique scenario for them to be able to reshoot this. There's a fan petition that has like 3.8 million signatures for people to go redo season 8 of Game of Thrones, and HBO's not going to do that.
Hell
So
no.
it just shows how unique this
Yeah.
scenario is. It's not just the amount of people who need it; it's the circumstances around it. It's
Yeah,
a perfect storm that doesn't relate to any other movie.
Yeah, I mean, the whole suicide prevention uh, uh, awareness
Yeah,
and
they raised so much money for that.
150 grand.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
And the guys who started that, whoever you are, I don't know your actual name, but whoever started the release this Snyder Cut movement and did all that work, if you ever hear this, thank you so much, because
Medal of Honor.
dude,
give it to him.
Yeah, I mean, just incredible, good stuff. But I think what's a point to me that's crazy about all this, and what may have led to what is now known as the Justice League because of Joss Whedon, is how involved the executives got. There's enough reports out there. You can go find any of them on Hollywood Reporter or Variety or The Wrap or whatever. But there was all this talk about how execs cut it up and changed stuff. And the guy in charge, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, and I don't want to butcher it, but we'll just call him Kevin T. Was the main one who was kind of, from what I understand, what I believe was making the final calls for everything. He got ousted because he unfortunately was a little bit of a creep, like some of the other executives are known to be in Hollywood, and was promising roles for sex with certain actress, and it was a whole scandal. It got brought up. He was, fired, essentially let go. They brought in a new female CEO from the BBC, I think maybe BBC America and Sarnoff, and I think that really changed the dynamic of what could happen overall just at Warner Brothers in general. They made it a note to try to go back to the idea of being the filmmaker studio, which Zach has recently quoted in his recent press release, I believe, with the Hollywood Reporter with Boris. But I think that whole idea of bringing in someone new who's listening, who's not involved in this just kind of gross side of Hollywood. It's a female executive. She's super successful with all the things she's been in. If you want to know more, you can look her up, Ann Sarnoff. But just having that ability to change things really allowed for even more change. And I'm pretty sure she was probably one of the ones who was instrumental in being like, look, there is something happening with this. It's a movement. In November, the 2-year anniversary, it became the #1 movie talked about in the world, went trending #1 on Twitter, and it was the #1 movie that's ever been talked about on Twitter that's never been made. Incredible. It's crazy.
Well, and just to add to it took Kevin T, as you said, having to step down after all of that, but that happened after the reports of everyone saying the executives got paid huge bonuses to get
That's
Justice
right.
League released in a time frame, and that didn't even move the needle,
Right.
even as juicy a tidbit as that was.
Yep.
So they rushed the production on it. They brought Joss in, which I feel bad for Joss Whedon. Nobody generally likes his version of it, even though he would say that he also had a hand in the Frankenstein portion of it. It's not necessarily his movie either.
Yeah. And I feel kind
so
of
that
bad.
just shows how much it took to move the needle. It took a sex scandal,
right,
to do it.
Yeah, I also feel kind of bad for Danny Elfman. Whenever all this came out, and obviously nobody really knew what the backstory was. I was just shitting all over Danny Elfman. I was just like, this dude is just jerking off his own dick. He's throwing out his old Batman theme. He's trying to save it, but honestly, he and Joss Whedon got brought in probably around the same time, and they're just like, we need you to do this. Go.
We need to hurry and do it.
Yeah,
and so the timeline they were put on.
I can't imagine that was a great look for either one of those guys, and I talk so much shit about Danny Elfman, and I'm so sorry.
What is Danny Elfman's best movie composer, to me, the original Batman score comes to mind first.
Right.
And the original 1989 Batman score is one of the best, in my opinion, comic book theme songs. Beyond the Adam West theme song that's very campy, noticeable, the 89 one is immediately recognizable. So it's good. It just sounded a lot like it.
And whenever they tweaked it for the animated series, even better.
Yeah.
But his sound doesn't match that movie, and it doesn't match that style, and it never would, and it shouldn't, because it's different.
It's different, and that's the whole point of this. It's different.
Yeah.
So that's where everyone is most excited. We're very glad that they brought in a new executive to at least see the money-making aspect of this, because what you and I talked about at nauseum was how could they continue bringing in or keeping actors that were, like Aquaman and Wonder Woman, keeping the same actor in those roles if they were essentially discarding the vision that Zack Snyder had, and then you didn't have Superman signed a new contract, Henry Cavill. Ben Affleck was now leaving the project. We were in such a disarray over what even was going on that we were dying for the new CEO. Her name is Ann Sarnoff, to make an announcement at some point to tell us what direction everything was going.
Right. And, took a little bit of time, but we know what's happening. Everything is happening that we could have ever wanted and more. Which leads us to the more part. What we know about the Snyder Cut and what are the possibilities that could occur in reality with what we know about everything that's happened so far. I believe the first and main point that everyone's been pointing to, and I'm sure it's almost inevitable now, especially if they want to bring up the idea of Warner Brothers being the filmmaker studio and giving Zack Snyder that type of permission, is the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad. It is well known that what came out was not Ayer's original vision. They got it put together by a trailer house, which is a company that puts together trailers for movies and music and just makes little exciting things. It was not edited by who Ayer wanted. The story was changed up. Again, execs came in because of the BVS stuff and made their little tweaks and turns. But it is 100% possible, and I would say almost inevitable, that his version of Suicide Squad is on the way.
Yes, we've seen direct tweets from him interacting with AT&T, the parent company, saying one thing at a time, kind of some winks, some nods. We know that his project was even further along than Zack Snyder's was, so it doesn't seem like it would cost a reported $30 million. Or we've seen some higher figures for Zack Snyder's
I bet they could.
budget.
I bet they could cut that thing for $4 million and have be done. The way he's talking about it and what he's had, and just all they got to do is edit, just re-edit almost.
So here's what you do if you're HBO Max. I'm not a big fan if they cut this into 6 parts.
No.
I hope they just release a 4-hour movie. Because I think 6 parts, if they did one a week, I think it would be clear to most people that they would just be holding on people to have a second month of subscription.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a different way you do that is maybe release Snyder Cut in the 1 month, and then you do the Suicide Squad Ayer cut the next month.
Well,
and for God's sakes, give me more than 11 seconds of Jared Leto's show.
Oh my God! If there's
let him have a chance. Let me see what he can do.
Listen, I know a lot of people don't like Jared Leto's Joker, and I get all the reasons why you probably don't like it. I fucking loved it. I get it. At least in my mind, I get where he's trying to come from. This version of Joker was influenced by drug lords, and honestly, my favorite part in Suicide Squad involves Joker, but it involves the fact that the security guard played by Ike Barinholtz, who's a very fucking funny improviser and actor. He goes through 2 or 3 sets of people before Joker even enters the room. So people take Joker seriously as a villain, as a bad guy. They know that's how serious it is. It's not just he shows up and he's not just laughing and hitting you with a big hammer or anything. This dude is the baddest motherfucker on the villain side, Batman has beat the shit out of him, but he still hasn't got him all the way. Like, this dude is where it's at. And his security detail shows it. And again, if you don't like him, great. I get it. Uh, I also think he was given the short end of the stick. You don't get to fully flesh out a new version of one of the most iconic characters in 11 minutes or less. It is not on Jared
Yeah,
Leto.
and then because he wasn't shown at all and only referenced to in Birds of Prey, it casts even more doubt over just what that version of Joker was in general. He certainly didn't seem like the foe that if we're dealing with an aged Batman or a weary Batman, that this Joker would also maybe seem emboldened because he's got now a weary Batman,
for
or
20
if he's more
years.
nervous. Yeah, I mean it's years and years that they've been foes together. And so, yeah, Jared Leto must have been watching, Joaquin Phoenix's portrayal and him getting all those awards and just saying, "That's if you would just give me more screen time, who knows where we would be."
Listen, there's a reason Jared Leto won an Oscar for Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah,
He's not
he can morph
talented.
into roles.
Yes. And I mean, this was the character of characters, and you don't get to see that in 11 minutes or less, and I'll stand by that forever.
Yeah.
In my mind, it would make more sense to release the Ayer cut first, because if you're going canon and they want to rebuild the DCEU, which we'll go into later, through Zack Snyder's full vision, Suicide Squad came first before JL. It leads into JL.
That's true. The opening scene was the result of the death of Superman. They're selling those T-shirts.
That's right. And he's also recently said, I think as recent as yesterday or the day before, that it directly led into Justice League as far as his cut goes.
Right.
So it would only make sense. And again, they also just released yesterday. Today is May 29th. On May 28th, they did HBO Max, or it was stated in an article, HBO Max is already getting rid of some movies. One of those movies is Justice League. And I'll tell you why, because no one's fucking watching it, because they're all
nobody's watching it.
They don't give, no one gives a shit unless your kid's like 10 or under and they just want to see it.
Brandon, I cannot stress to you. I tried to watch Justice League the other day, and the opening scene where Batman's got the guy on the rooftop.
Oh my god!
Is on its own, by itself, is a fine scene. But don't tell me that then Bruce Wayne goes searches out for everybody else, and all of a sudden he's got a 4-month long beard.
The timeline is awful. I
sense.
actually don't believe he would do a backflip off a water tower. Being his age at this time, I'm sure he would have done something a little bit more smoother.
Yeah, he was spry.
The backflip
all of a sudden
the backflip was very showy, and that doesn't seem like this Batman. But to me, it would make sense for the Snyder cut, or I'm sorry, for the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad to happen first, to lead into a Justice League 2 potentially. And that brings me to my next question prediction: is Zack Snyder actually back in the driver's seat? I think it is up in the air because they haven't had a real direction at all. And if Snyder cut goes the way every single person is wanting it to go, Zack Snyder could be exactly where he was 3 years ago and be the Kevin Feige of the DCU. I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's happened, but I think there's a bigger chance than there isn't of that possibly happening.
Yeah, at two points. The first one is, now that this has gotten the green light to be released, nothing is certain. I don't think anybody that has sources can legitimately say that things can't turn on a dime and go a completely different direction, and this has been proof of that.
Yep, 100%.
The second proof is whether you want him to be or not. I think by allowing it to go forward, you give fans what they've been harping for, but because you have allowed the same actors to keep their roles into future movies like Wonder Woman 2 and Aquaman 2,
who have been as passionate about it as the director himself.
You got talks with Henry Cavill at least making some appearances, and maybe Shazam or maybe Black Adam even next year. That what is the purpose of keeping Zack Snyder around to show us his full cut and then drop those characters? That doesn't register.
Not at all.
If you have the issue with Ben Affleck, maybe he can't be persuaded to come join the role again. Well, then you do a Flashpoint Flash movie and you bring in a younger actor. to play Batman, or you do something where you can rewrite history. But I don't think that should be the biggest hurdle, and you wouldn't be doing A if you didn't eventually have plans for B, because they go together.
That's right.
Why would you do the Snyder cut and then cut everything off after you've given the fans something that actually moves forward?
I'd like to. I've had two people I know that are listening in say something to me, or one person on chat. Kenny, thanks for listening. Glad you're here. Glad you believe in
Yeah,
us.
thanks, Kenny.
My friend Blessing said she'd watch Birds of Prey before Justice League. Good call. Justice League is terrible.
It is
Again, that's why
trash.
we're waiting for the Snyder cut. But I will say, you know, if there's anything that talks, it's money. And guess what makes more money than one Batman? Two Batmans.
Two
Fucking do
Batmans.
it. Like, listen, you got Pattinson set up in a completely different world that's more than likely, in my mind, going to be Joaquin's world as well. It matches right in with the Elseworlds idea,
So you
especially.
think Joaquin will be uh, Pattinson's
I think
Pattinson's Joker?
I think there's a good chance, and I've thought this ever since I saw Joker, is that I think it would be amazing, at least in that world, to show and which they have the origin story of Joker, or at least this version of Joker, which, by the way, the most profitable comic book movie of all time was this movie. It only cost like 80 or 90 million to make. It made closer to, I think it almost made $1 billion. Is that right?
Yeah, I thought it
I don't,
maybe
you'll
didn't
have to double
cross.
check my numbers. I'm sorry, but either way, it was indeed the most profitable comic book movie in history, and profitable because it was a small budget and made shitload of money. If you
Yeah,
don't
it
think,
almost worldwide it almost made 1.1 billion.
there you go. There's no way
I'm
Warner.
sorry, a little over 1 billion. Sorry.
Cool. There's no way Warner Brothers is gonna say, "All right, great, that was a cool one-off movie." If you make $1 billion, you're damn sure getting another one. Uh,
Oh yeah,
and I
hundred
think the
percent.
best way to expand that is to build up Joker. He was in that movie is known to take place in 1981. Robert Pattinson's Batman is taking place in like 94, 95, I believe is the time. That is a perfect time frame for the young Bruce Wayne from the Joker movie to become Pattinson. So I think it's a great idea for those two to meet maybe down the line and see an origin story of the villain first instead of the hero, like we've seen in Batman time and time again. It gives you a great distinct point of where, when they do collide, where both of these people are coming from. And we'll get, we can talk about that later on. But two Batmans is obviously going to make more money than one Batman, and I think if you put Robert Pattinson and Joaquin in the same world and leave that alone, obviously it's not in the DCEU. You leave room for Ben Affleck to come back as Batman. Well, it was said Ben Affleck didn't want to do it because he was scared of relapses. It's a big budget movie, yada yada. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now you have HBO Max. Now you can make a Mandalorian style series about Batman with Ben Affleck. Uh, you have a low stakes production team. A series is not going to be as crazy high stakes as a $300 million movie. Uh, Low
Well,
stakes.
remember too, he wanted when he was writing his version, he wanted a grittier, more detective style that I
That's
think
right. Uh,
Planet of the Apes director is going to adapt at least at some point for Pattinson. But I think you could do more of the behind the scenes detective aspect for Ben to star in, and maybe that would appeal to him rather than having to be in the suit every single episode,
I agree.
etc. I just think it's an iffy task to take. I think what made The Mandalorian work so well is that it's a story about the bounty hunters that within the Star Wars world had really never been told.
Right.
You got a little bit in the Clone Wars animated series, but um, people didn't react. I didn't like the TV show Gotham
No,
very
nobody
much.
did. At least not
But it's
anyone that I know.
because you didn't really have it wasn't Batman centric enough, or you just had too young of a Batman. But the suit reveal at the end in the last episode was bad.
Well,
I
listen.
just I think you got to be careful when you do that, and I don't know if Ben would be able to do that.
Well, here's my ideas and my take. First of all, as far as Gotham goes, everyone loves Commissioner Gordon, but they don't want him as a central character.
Right.
You might get some one offs here and there of people who might be interested in that story, but they're not interested in seeing Batman villains develop with Jim Gordon and no real Batman except for a little kid. It's just the timeline and everything just wasn't really believable for me in Gotham. If you're a Gotham fan, sorry, I'm not. No judgment. Still love you. Thank you for listening. But with that said, I think Ben Affleck in a Mandalorian style, again, I'm not saying put him in Star Wars, but Mandalorian style series of his Batman on HBO Max is exactly what he needs. It's lower stakes. He's in a good place right now as far as uh, dealing with his alcohol stuff. I mean, you can see photos of him. He's in like tip-top shape right now. I mean, he's in shape to be Batman right now.
Well, let's say it happens and they make it very episode centric. Maybe they develop a Hush villain season. How does that coincide with what we're currently seeing?
So that's what I'm not sure. This could basically be more of his side thing. So again, in my mind, especially with what has been said, and especially with what Joe Manganiello has teased, Joe Manganiello, if I say your name wrong, I'm sorry, has teased for the original Deathstroke end credits. I mean, basically, you see the Batman series as like a side mission. And you see him in that Deathstroke story play out in the script that he had, which is talked about as being the best Batman script that's ever been written. Again, multiple sources have said that from what I believe. You can look that up. People love Ben Affleck's script. You break that down, you go rewrite it into a series style where you can tell more of the story, a little bit better pace. You're not chunking it into 2 hours. I mean, this.
Yeah, look, as skeptical as I would be about it occurring, I want it.
Exactly.
Give it to me.
I mean,
you could lock me into HBO Max I would pay for a year subscription if they told me that was coming out.
And I think that's what's so cool is now that HBO Max is available, and the idea of a series is possible. I think that's where you take this type of thing. You split up the team.
Right.
Wonder Woman's a movie person or a movie character. Aquaman's a movie character. Flash is getting a movie. There's Green Lantern is getting a series. Give Batman a series. Give Cyborg a series, and then use Cavill.
Yeah, because then that could develop into Teen Titans.
Yeah, exactly. And then
I don't know what you would do with the original Titans, but they just probably have to figure that out. How Marvel's figuring out with their Netflix, Daredevil, etc.
Well, for DC at least, because of that whole crossover event on the CW, at the very end they did have Ezra Miller's Flash meet Grant Gustin's Flash, and they also had the Titans scene in the very beginning of that crossover, and on a different Earth. So DC has in fact created the idea of the multiverse within their TV movies and stuff. Because of
and those just aren't throwaway movies. I mean, that makes me feel like they do have something planned, and they just want to throw something out there as a teaser. It's not just a throwaway moment.
Right. Well, and I say all that to say, you develop these series with Green Lantern. Maybe one of the Green Lanterns in the series is the Green Lantern that's going to show up in Zack Snyder's movie. Then you kind of learn about their past. You give Cyborg a series to see him develop as a single character. And then you use Superman with his, limited contract right now that he just isn't talked with or whatever, making cameos and stuff. He can go anywhere. He's Superman. He can fly in the movies. He can fly into the TV series if he needs to. I mean, you break him up as you need.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. It's just you can break him up as you need and then bring him back for Man of Steel 2 when the time is right, which I believe should come.
People seem to be upset about that. He was just going to get some cameo spots, and I'm like, fine. After they did the 3 Iron Man movies, Robert Downey cameoed in a lot of stuff. That's fine with me. Give us more of it. And if that is the case, then the events of Zack Snyder's Snyder Cut happens and continues to happen through the DCEU. That's why I'll reiterate. I don't know how it can just be a one-off. It has to continue. Otherwise, why even do it?
Exactly. I feel the same way, and for everyone that's heard about Cavill signing like a limited contract and just for cameos and stuff, that's just right now. Again, that's within the same week this thing got announced.
Right.
So,
and Cavill probably knows he has leverage.
Yeah, 100%. And for those who don't know, Henry Cavill is represented by The Rock's ex-wife, Dany Garcia, who is also The Rock's manager. And The Rock is also playing Black Adam in the DCEU. So if you don't
Which I
think
did just see it got greenlit for August 31st. They're going to start filming.
yeah, I knew production was probably going to get pushed. They were supposed to start in June or July, but
Okay.
2 months out isn't that bad. But
Right.
if you don't think The Rock has a stake not only in the DCU but in Henry Cavill, and Danny Garcia doesn't have a stake in both of them, you're crazy.
No, no.
I mean, there is no one that probably has more power right now than The Rock. And when you're represented by the same person who represents The Rock, and you're both in the same movie universe, and people love you as Superman, you're probably going to be around for a little while.
Yep.
Even if it's just a small contract to get things moving and a couple cameos. He's probably more than likely 100% going to be in Shazam 2. They're
Yep.
saying not Black Adam. I bet that could change, but who knows? But
Right.
Cavill, in my mind, again, this is predictions time. This is not, this is super theory. This isn't super facts.
Right.
My belief, more than likely, with things that have been presented, is that Cavill's going to be Superman for a while. I don't think they'd invest $30 million to see a Vision finished, or at least $30 million. Could be more. No one's really saying the final total. We may have skipped over that in the beginning. If you don't know, HBO Max and Warner Brothers are investing $30 million into the Snyder Cut to get it finished. $30 million to finish a movie from 3 years ago. That's fucking crazy. But it's
Crazy.
the good kind of crazy. And if if they're doing that and they're coming to Henry Cavill to sign him back up as Superman for some cameos, at least for right now, there's more down the line. And I bet you anything after the Snyder Cut gets released and they see the real way Superman was supposed to come back and how he's changed as a character and stuff, I bet you there's a good chance within that week we could probably hear about a Man of Steel 2 and some real shit for Superman. But right now they're probably just trying to keep him in the loop and not lose him.
Well, what's your? I guess we kind of have similar best case scenarios for what the Snyder Cut could be. It can be amazing. It obviously before seeing it, because we're probably a little bit biased, we're gonna say it's better than what we've already seen Justice League wise.
Yes.
But what's the worst case scenario? That they give us what we want. It's good, and then they just don't follow up on it.
I hate to be such a downer, but I think worst case scenario is that uh, Zach has another tragedy happen and he can't finish this.
Yeah.
I don't think there is a worst case scenario.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that to make light of what happened, but I mean honestly, like I don't think there is a worst case scenario. I think there's a mediocre to best case scenario.
Okay.
Mediocre means maybe it just does tie up Zach's vision and allows the characters to move on in other directors' visions while kind of keeping from what's happened. Uh, but in my mind, I've all of this has led to amazing things.
Well, maybe best case scenario is Affleck signs back on. That's
Yes,
what I'll say.
100%. That's a good way to put it. I think amazing best case scenario is Affleck's
Yes.
back, and they
Okay.
realize that they can make more money with two Batmans than one.
So
Which is
are you on the Affleck is the best Batman? Yeah. I think he's the best Batman because his brutal fighting style.
I think
Maybe not the best Bruce Wayne,
I
but
think
he's the
he's
best
the
Batman to me.
yes, I think he's the best depiction of Batman. Uh, I'd say I don't know if I'd say best Bruce Wayne, but he's my favorite Bruce Wayne.
Oh, really?
I like Christian Bale a lot, and I have for a long time. And I like
Yeah,
Michael
he's
Keaton.
my favorite Bruce Wayne.
And I have nothing but good things to say about Christian Bale. I mean, those movies are game changers. Um, except if we ever do an episode just on The Dark Knight Rises, that could be a lot of fun. Um,
Oh yeah, I'd love to do that. Well, I
but
used to be a big just Keaton until I die.
yes,
And then when Christian Bale came out, I remember also just not understanding the concept of Batman's being in a different world. So when Batman
right.
Begins came out and they ended on the cliffhanger of the Joker card, I was like, nope, that's inaccurate based on blah blah blah. I was
That's
that
not
guy.
canon.
Yeah. So once Dark Knight came out, I was like, oh wow, this
That's so
is
funny.
a
I
game
had the
changer.
exact opposite reaction. When I saw that Joker card at the end of the movie, I was blown away and I was super happy and I was just like, hell yeah, this is amazing. I saw that in Midland too, and I think I left it like,
I just remember the opening scene of Dark Knight. I just remember thinking, whoa,
what is
like it
this?
just felt like a whole different movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, but anyway, I'm on the Affleck train now. He seemed like he was stuffed in his Bruce Wayne suits because
Yes.
he was kind of so bulky.
Yeah.
Uh,
From what I
and then
sorry.
yeah, go yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, from what I heard, they wanted him to have the look of like a heavyweight brawler, like a heavyweight MMA fighter. Like he can move, he can throw down, like. But he was like,
Well, he did in
yeah,
that scene after he has the first confrontation with where he runs the Batmobile into Superman. He gets back to the cave and he changes. He's in that gray suit, and I mean he's stuffed.
yeah, he's thick as hell. Uh,
Yeah,
and Zack Snyder's known for having like heavy workout routines and trainers and stuff on
right.
set most of the time. So I mean, they wanted him to be jacked. Uh,
Yeah,
but back to him as being as far as him versus Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne. I've watched Batman versus Superman Ultimate Edition twice within the past week, just because I've been so like amped on the idea of Snyder Cut happening. But I was like made a point to pay attention and like what do I love so much about it, and I love the pain that Bruce Wayne shows, especially when he's talking to Alfred. Uh,
see, I had a question. I have a question for you on that then.
Yeah,
When Alfred is questioning, obviously his drive when he discusses the white Portuguese and is it actually a dirty bomb, then he kind of figures out no, it's not. It's really this kryptonite, and Alfred is like he's on our side. For Alfred to have the clairvoyance, maybe not even that, just the foresight to kind of be under control and look beyond the situation,
mm-hmm.
and to see how because Batman is so jaded that he's like, look, if there's a 1% chance, then I'm 100% fixing to kill him.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem like the same Batman that you would get, that we will get in a Robert Pattinson Batman movie, because he's going to be a little bit more bright-eyed. So I wondered if you picked up on just that. His entire mentality as Batman seemed to change as he's older.
Yes, and I think he kind of describes it in that, 20 years in Gotham, how many good guys are left, how many of them stayed that way.
Yeah.
And then, he talks to Diana and he's like, I've met a lot of women like you. And, I mean, that's the point, is you've seen this Batman, he's broken. He's broken down,
yeah.
And he doesn't give a fuck anymore.
No longer is he, deducing logic. He's just like
right. No. He's beat down, get the mission done. Which and I've thought a lot about this too. It's like everyone's like, oh, a lot of people's problems with Ben Affleck's version is he was okay with the loss of life, and he was okay with guns and all that kind of stuff. And they're like, our Batman's the one that doesn't use guns, no killing, da da da. It's like, well. We've all seen that before. We've all seen that guy. We've all seen that Batman.
And Batman used to have a gun in the early comics.
Oh, so. By the way, Michael Keaton kills everyone with machine guns on his Batmobile and blowing up the Ace chemicals. He murdered people. He also kills people in Batman Returns with the little bombs that the clowns have walking around.
Oh, definitely.
He kills people in that too. So Ben Affleck's
but they're just clowns, not civilians.
That's right. They're not real people. But my thing is that like we've all kind of gotten used to that idea of Batman, and I think the interesting thing that Zack Snyder tried to show us is like, here's one who's been taken to the brink and broken, and he doesn't care anymore, and now he sees a superpowered alien for the first time. How do I even come to terms with trying to defeat that? And then you see Superman sacrifice his life, literally the vision of hope, and that's kind of what restores that traditional version of Batman to be able to be like, oh my God, there's still some good.
Yeah, look what he was willing to do.
Yeah, an alien gave his life for Earth.
Right.
And again, this is all BVS rant. We can get more into that, but I love the pain that Ben Affleck shows as Bruce Wayne.
So allow him to finish the arc. Thank God for the Snyder Cut.
Yes, exactly. And I do have some theories. If anyone ever wants to email us about if you're interested at all and you hear this and you're like, this is interesting, I care about this. I have a theory that I came up with last night. I don't know if it's been talked about, and if it has, I'm sorry. But I think in Batman versus Superman in the Nightmare version, when Batman comes out of the dirt hideout or whatever, and the dude rolls up and he's like, "Did you get the rock?" And the guy who responds to him is like, "Yeah, we got it." And then when he sees that it's not the rock, it's like a light, and they set up Batman, and that guy apologizes to Batman. He's like, "I'm sorry." Uh, I think, and I don't know if this has already been talked about. If it has, I'm sorry, I don't remember. I think that could have been Oliver Queen.
Oh, really?
I think that may have been Green Arrow, because it's the only. He has the perfect goatee, the perfect shape of face, and everything for it. He's just not wearing green or holding a bow and arrow. But if you
Oh
think,
wait, is he? But is he shot right away?
no, he says I'm
When
sorry, and then all the parademon guys that are wearing Superman stuff or whatever start shooting people, and Batman yells no, and then that's when he like that dude tries to shoot Batman, and then Batman shoots him and kills him.
But where
Uh,
is Oliver Queen?
he's the one who opens the case to show that
I'm
it's
saying what happens to Oliver Queen though? Is he shot in that
yeah, Batman
scene?
shoots him. Yeah, he shoots him and then
Okay.
turns around and starts fighting. But I think they probably just didn't have time to flesh that out. I think that it might have been Oliver Queen. I think it might have been Green Arrow in the future when, because again,
So
Green
you think
Arrow's.
Green Arrow is working with Superman then?
I think yes, I think so. I think
Because you do have superheroes. If anyone's followed the Injustice storyline, you do
right.
have superheroes choosing sides.
Right, the part of me the reason it thinks that is mainly because he apologizes to Batman. There's obviously a relationship between Batman and that guy looks like Oliver Queen. He has the goatee, he has the
Interesting.
beard, he has the haircut. If you're watching BVS again sometime, check it out. If you think, if you agree with me, or this has already been talked about, and I'm on old information, let me know. You can email us at supertheorypod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Anyways, I think that was Green Arrow in the future, but I think they just didn't flesh it out because there wasn't enough time. But yeah, anyways, back to that. I am super excited. I think worst. I think best case scenario is Affleck back as Batman and something more suited for Affleck's needs. Which brings us to the last point: is that this has, I think, Snyder Cut has changed comic book movies forever. Uh, the fans now know that the executives are paying attention to the fans. It is no more clear than right now. It took 3 years, but you know, to us it took 3 years. To them, it took till last November when Twitter trended and all that. And then
Right.
February, the producer Toby Emmerich reached out to Zach and was like, "Can we get this thing?" I
Yeah, and I do think you have a small section maybe of the populace that watches movies and just gonna hate whatever you put out anyway, and then they go
yeah,
on Twitter and they troll. But for the most part, fans would just like to see continuations of what has kind of been led up to. And in this very specific situation, it just makes sense that we want to give them our money,
yeah.
and they are acquiescing and they are allowing us to give them money.
Yeah, and
So
the cool thing is, if you don't want to give money to him for the Snyder Cut, you can give it to him for Pattinson as Batman, or you
exactly,
can give him money for both. Because guess what? They'll take it no matter what.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, I'm gonna too. They can have it all.
Here's my wallet. Take it
I got $100 I can PayPal them right now if they want to send me an early
right
cut.
this second.
Yeah, but I think now more than ever, fans have the power to get what they believe they deserve. Versus
Well, and
what
as DC fans, we've been clamoring for any sort of kind of Marvels, type stability. You may not, people may not like or have a preference. I personally feel like Marvel's done a better job than DC so far. Obviously, they're into phase past. I guess they're going to phase 4 now.
yeah,
Um, we just want some semblance of structure,
yeah,
and they've got structure at Marvel. Hopefully now we've got some sort of structure going on at DC, and we can start fleshing out stuff besides the CW type TV
oh my
shows. I'm
gosh.
sorry, and
The,
unless people listening are fans of the CW and their shows, that's fine. It's crazy to me they are into season 7 of the Arrow, but I've heard good things about the Flash. I just don't watch them. I
the
I just don't.
I watched The Flash for a little while and it was good, but it was just because it's like a superhero soap opera kind of
Yeah,
in the cheap way where it's like if there's constantly a problem with him and Iris, or there's constantly a problem with
And then how many people are faster than him? 100?
Yeah.
It seems like every time I hear there's 7 different people that are actually faster than the Flash.
Well, and
right.
what they do right though, as far as the Flash, is they're very comic accurate. They do a lot of comic accurate looks, a lot of comic accurate characters. I can't believe they brought Godspeed. Godspeed's like a pretty new one. He's from the Rebirth series, and they brought him in.
Yeah, that's right.
So I give them all the credit in the world for trying to create comic accurate stuff, but for the CW. So
it just feels low
budget, so I get it.
Yeah, it feels low budget to me. It's just hard for me to watch personally, but there are fans of it.
Yeah, Gotham was the hardest though.
Oh my god, yeah.
But yeah, I think now more than ever fans have the power, and rightfully so. And I think more than a consensus majority type feeling. I don't think every single fan should get every single little detail they want, but like there's
and they won't. The example of the Game of Thrones, they're not going to get their way.
No.
This is just unique.
Yeah. And I think the Snyder Cut has made the comic book movie universe more unique now than ever. Seeing what happens going forth with movies and HBO Max versus movies and Disney Plus, I mean, that's kind of the new realm of competition. Can HBO Max make series as good as the Marvel series that are going to be on Disney Plus? They can match budget-wise. They both got all the money they need. Can they just catch up structurally?
Well, see, and I think the rush to catch up structurally is what is doomed.
Yes.
Obviously, what Zack Snyder had to go through is kind of what derailed everything. Maybe they weren't happy with his cut in general, but I think it all obviously plays a role into it. But I think it's the rushing that hurts the structural nature of it because, again, they're into Phase 4 of Marvel, and now they're just now giving characters that we have attachments to their own kind of shows. And you just wonder if they try to, give an obscure character his own show just to try to fit the model, if that's really going to resonate with anybody.
Yeah. And I think...
I'd watch a Cyborg show. Anybody that's in the Justice League that has been shown before, I would watch. Now, is it General Lennox, who is, I guess, Martian Manhunter?
Allegedly.
Zack Snyder's version, allegedly. I wouldn't watch a series directly on him unless we start actually seeing what he can do as Martian Manhunter.
That's right. And luckily that's kind of what HBO Max has touted, is that, they've got the budget for real cinematic ventures, but in a streaming service.
Right.
And, so that possibility is fully there as far as seeing, like, I don't know what a Martian Manhunter series would be about right now.
I think it would be maybe I just wouldn't want to see a behind-the-scenes, very military.
Yeah.
Because you do have to question, if that is Martian Manhunter, where has he been besides being the Lennox character?
And why has he not been involved till now?
Yeah, because he would absolutely have to intervene if Doomsday shows up.
Yeah.
In Batman vs. Superman. So, I don't know. I guess we'd see. But, any other characters, I'd watch a Wonder Woman series. I mean, any of the other main characters. But for Zack Snyder's first promotional poster to be Aquaman on the front, and it says Unite the Seven.
Yeah.
And we never get 7. We only have 6 by the end of it.
I thought about that in the car this morning, like, Jesus. It never ended
up
getting to make sense.
Yeah, I mean, they showed us an old Green Lantern in the battle with Steppenwolf, which actually was supposed to be a battle with Darkseid, Ulaxis, when he was younger. But that's not the Lantern they meant to show.
Not at all.
I did see an interview with one of the guys that said he was playing Green Lantern. He was supposed to come to Ben Affleck towards the end of the movie in like a big green light and wake up Batman from his sleep, like outside his window. But then, so there were some conflicting things where they said, well, actually, he was just describing, he was one of the soldiers out in the park scene where they all turn on Superman. So I don't know, that was a little sketchy, but he was describing showing up to Ben Affleck's in the middle of the night or something. So maybe that we were supposed to get a tease, I don't know.
I don't know, but I did read today that Zack Snyder commented on his Vero thing. Someone asked him if there's more nightmare sequences, and he said, "Oh yeah." So
Oh my god, that's so awesome.
4 hours, regardless if it's a 4 hour movie or a 6 part series, which I could see it going either way, just because they're going to try to milk it and get more subscribers with
Well, do
us.
you want a cliffhanger 6 episode?
Here's what I'm going to do. I've already got HBO Max now, and if they release it in 6 episodes, I will probably watch it each week, and then as soon as the last episode is out, I'll probably binge watch them all again together. So,
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was wondering how I would handle it, but there would be no way I could just hold off for 6 weeks just so I could
no,
binge
not at
watch all of
all.
it.
And it's just going to keep people
So,
guessing and wondering.
so then does Batman die by the hands of Superman ripping out his heart? Because we do know Zack Snyder's 214-minute cut is supposed to end, spoiler alert, in Batman's death. Or does Batman die at the hand of Darkseid's Omega?
See, from what I remember, I believe Batman was supposed to die in the fifth movie, not in Justice League One.
So you don't think that he would? I mean, you
I
think he would
don't know.
die in a sacrifice scenario, not actually in a nightmare scene?
I don't know if he'd repeat that step since it's already been shown in BVS, as far as
Well,
Superman shooting his heart out.
I wonder. See, that's the question. Is I did read where he did want extra footage time to be able to reshoot some scenes with them, and they said no.
Yeah.
So maybe that was his attempt to change some things up. But you're right. Maybe he doesn't want to repeat a scene.
Listen, if there's one thing that this thing has showed us, it's all options are there. So even when they say they're not going to let him do it, there's so much time
Yeah,
right
you're right.
now. He's got
You're
till
right.
next year. Let's see some more money come into budget by magic.
And you know, if in November they release a trailer and it's just so awesome, they may say, "Here's $10 million more
Oh,
dollars."
I
What do you need?
when that trailer gets dropped, it's probably going to break some records. I bet.
Oh my gosh, I've been fooled by so many fan edited trailers
Oh yeah,
that I'm excited about those.
yeah. Uh, Me too. Well, we're on about an hour and 5 minutes right now. I believe that's all we had to talk about for this episode. We're both very excited. Um, yeah, we can't wait for the Snyder Cut. This is and again, this is what me and him talk about all the time. Uh, Through text messages or Facebook Messenger, we're constantly talking about all the options that are possibly available are on the way. And
Yes, and we're glad you guys wanted to join us for all things comic book movies. We appreciate it.
we sure do. And I guess we'll leave it at that. Guys, just remember, especially now more than ever, even when they say it's off the table, nothing is off the table.
And also remember that facts aren't brave. Theories are brave. So if you're coming here to listen to all the behind the sources scenes that we may have contacts in the industry, we don't have those. These are all theories. We're throwing them to the wall. We're seeing what sticks. And if it ends up being right, we will spend 3 episodes telling you how right we were.
That's right. And just to prove that we've gotten one right, I did. It's in